Ashleigh Early, everybody, the CEO from the other side of sales. Um, Ashleigh, you want to introduce yourself to everyone? Just give us a little bit of an understanding of sort of what you
Yeah.
do at the other side of sales.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Ashleigh Early, as he just said. Um, so the other side of sales is really all about helping companies either build sustainable sales functions or rebuild when things are going wrong. So I do a lot of work with founders who are launching their first sales processes, either coaching them or helping them build those first things, or working with companies that have established SDR and AE teams to come in, custom training, custom systems analysis, or even working with their messaging to figure out what's going wrong and get it right sided within 90 days.
Perfect. And that 90 days, how often, or is that an ambitious goal for a lot of companies? Or,
It, as with everything, it depends, but usually that with 90 days, we can at least get it going in the right direction. I'm not saying it's going to be, oh, we can come in and generate 30% improvement within 90 days, but for example, if the close rate is the thing we want to elevate, we can usually start seeing upticks there. We can start seeing upticks in reply rates. We can see upticks in the way people are handling certain objections. We can see upticks in the number of contracts sent. So it's less of like, I'm not going to come in and say, and honestly, you should never trust anyone who says, oh, I promise these sort of results in this many days. They're lying.
exactly.
You
Yeah,
can't do that. What I can promise is we will get you pointed in the right direction. You should have some I've never not had at least some early indicators that you're moving in the right direction within 90 days. If not within 30. Sometimes I get to pull the magic out, but not often.
but that's a great point. Like that, it's all about nuance, and you don't know necessarily some of the hurdles that might run into, but you can look to see the indicators. And where I see a lot of the over promising in the sales tech space, the sort of, for lack of a better word, guru type space is guarantee this, guarantee that. And I think, how many times do you see these posts on LinkedIn where it's, we can book you 30 appointments, just use this tool, just do this.
Oh, I get those messages 3 times a day.
Yeah. And it's infuriating, and everybody's sick of it these days, I think, which is kind of leads me on. And where I'm going with this is that's what has, I think, created the space we see and the environment we see for a lot of sales teams at the moment, distracted with lots of tools. And I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you mentioned sort of fixing that messy Jenga tower.
Yeah.
And that's how you sort of refer to it. You just elaborate in your words, explain what that Jenga tower looks like, or maybe how it's come about for most companies.
Yeah, the Jenga Tower really is what I think a lot of enterprise sales tech stacks end up turning into over time. And it comes down to a few different dynamics. One is building fast. So you grab whatever tools do the job quickly. And then over time, it also that gets compounded by new leaders coming in and asking for tools, sales ops people coming in and having to build things their way. But what you end up with is this big old Jenga tower of tools that maybe you don't need anymore, but they're somehow doing this one specific thing. But what makes it really infuriating is it does technically work. And so no one wants to touch anything lest it break. But the problem is, it's a Jenga tower. You move one little thing, brrr, everything's going to come crashing down. And what makes that really dangerous, especially in startup land, is that crash can literally put your sales team out of commission for weeks. I've seen it. And that's tons of lost revenue, tons of lost time. It's really expensive to fix. So one of the things I work with a lot of companies on, and where Stacky could really be, I think, a great help. Henry wants to jump in and say hello to everybody. Hello.
Hey, Henry.
One of the ways that Stacky could really help, I think, is helping companies proactively take a look for those risks to make it less of a Jenga tower and more of a Lincoln logs. And if you remember those like things like they lock in together, so it's really sturdy. So you've got the right tools, not just the right price, but more to the point that it's actually stable and does what you need it to do without it being this crazy amalgamation that no one really understands.
Exactly. And that amalgamation that no one understands, it just completely breaks the workflow and the focus of your reps. And that's the real issue. And that's the biggest blocker to pipeline. But people continue to look at tools over here that can fix and solve this, or create us more leads, or give us the right accounts, and do all this stuff. But they're just adding more distraction for the sales team, who are the ones who actually speak to your prospects, to your customers. And that's that tool overload, And I think you spoke about with like a lot of the half-baked automations,
Mm-hmm.
which end up, that's what's causing the distraction, right?
I think it's even more subtle and insidious than that. It's sometimes, especially when it comes to really bigger, once you get beyond 20, 30 people, it's people start engineering for the process, for the reporting, for the results, instead of
Mm-hmm.
engineering for the people. The
Mm-hmm.
point of a sales tool is to help the sales rep spend as much of their time as possible doing what they're best at, which is building relationships.
Yeah.
So anything that helps the reps do that is good. Anything that takes away from that is not. And the more we do need data, we need to make sure we know what's going on. We need to be able to coach. We need to be able to see the results of our effort. But I run into more and more companies where it's, oh, well, this is how it needs to be done. Well, why does it need to be done like that? Oh, because that's what our tools can do. Okay, are you sure those are the right tools? Are you sure those have been set up? I've lost track of the number of times I've gone into a company and they're like, oh, we have to do it this way because the tools won't allow it. And I'm like, yes, they do. You just have to rebuild it, but they do it. You just didn't set it up correctly, or there's this other thing going on. And it's especially tricky when you're dealing with the personality as well, because you're dealing with the sales leader who now is understanding, oh, I did this wrong, or the sales ops person who's like, hey, but no, I know how to do this. This is working. Don't mess with my system. I've got it the way I
Mm-hmm.
want it.
Yeah.
So then you have to bring the personalities into all of it and be like, hi, I know, and I'm not saying you're bad at your job. We're all human. We can all learn things.
Yeah.
But that also makes it really, really, really complex. So
Yeah. And that complexity, and I guess like the individuals who, for maybe it's a VP of sales, especially maybe an enterprise, they're the one who sort of put their neck out and said, we need to get this tool in place. It's going to help with this. And they drove that and they got it in place. And then a year later, it might not still be the right tool, especially if you've gone through different stages of growth, different team sizes, maybe there's new markets. And that sort of like, I don't know if FOMO is the right word, or just fear of things breaking. They also put their neck on the line in the first place. They don't want to take it out. You really have to, work with them to understand it's okay to like reset, and like we're at a different stage, different place, different growth. Let's see if we can adjust this. How would you sort of balance? And you've kind of maybe started on this already, but how do you balance the people, process, and tech when you do jump into a new client and you have all those different voices?
it's a balancing act every time. It really is. There's no, I wish I had some nice, snappy 1 minute answer to that. It's just a
Yeah.
balancing act every time. And I get it wrong. I go in and I piss someone off, or I don't do a good job explaining how important it is they fix this now, or other things like that. But what I always try to do is at least give them the information and make sure they've at least got it.
Yeah.
It's kind of the whole, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So try and build the case as best you can. But at the same time, especially when you're not a tool salesperson, you're still going to be looked at with an agenda. It's like, oh, well, you want us to do this because you're pushing this tool, you're pushing this, or you're whatever. And it's like, look, I'm just trying to give you options to make money. And a lot of times the choice is going to be, we want to do as little as possible on the tool stack, because either it's so critical, or there's cash, or it's maintenance. It's just, we don't have the manpower to do this right now. So it's usually me giving a series of options, kind of good, better, best. And kind of go from there and make sure it's really, really clear what the risks are by not going with the best. And then it's up to them to decide.
Yeah. Options. And I think you make a good point there as well. It's often you're looked at as like there's an agenda, or whenever people propose new tools, everyone thinks there's some agenda behind it. And one of the things we're seeing, and we're kind of pushing more and more at Stacky, is that there's not lots of bad tools anymore. There's
There's a few.
there's a few, but generally speaking, the top 3 or 4 tools in any category are fairly similar, and your team are going to do really well. So that's only a piece of the puzzle. And if you can just look for the one that the team are going to use the most, identify with, prefer, actually get along with, that user experience, user adoption is often a big thing. Those are the ones that's probably the right option. So these are the top 3 or 4 for your scenario. which one did the team like the most? Go with that one.
Yep,
And
that'll
that
be
gets
easier to
over a lot of
adopt.
those hurdles.
Well, the other side of that, though, is you have to make sure you do a proper rollout. It's
Hmm.
so simple.
Absolutely.
And it's something I'll say, brutal honesty, I think most, especially sales vendors, don't do very well.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, so it's something that you as a sales leader have to take on yourself, which is, okay, team, exactly how do I want you using this? Let's talk about the different capabilities that you can do and get them excited about using it. It's not just a let's join a webinar and see someone show me how to do this. It's, hey, John, pull up your account. Let's walk through how you're going to do this with this. Guys, look at how these cool things we can do with John's account. Look at how it's doing this with the email. Look at how when you spend 3 minutes putting the information to this tool, it maps over here and helps you do boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
So really taking the time with the team to make sure everyone understands why you're doing it, what the consequences of not doing it are, and making sure everyone's really comfortable with it. And that's not something the vendor can do. And as much as possible, I hate group onboarding. I think small group onboarding is way better. So don't do like, we're going to get the whole sales team together. Like, okay, AEs by region or by segment or by use case. Like really try and do it like micro learning style tends to work a lot better for
Absolutely.
onboarding.
Absolutely. And that brings it back to what you said earlier about it's helping. The goal of all the tools is to support the salespeople in talking to more people so they earn more money. That's what salespeople want to do. So, as you're that sales leader, you're that buyer, that champion for the tool, and maybe, I hate to use the word too often, but I often refer to them as point sellers. The point seller who sold you the solution,
Mm-hmm.
like, don't be afraid to go to them and say, I want a really good onboarding. I want you to do this and this, and like really drive that. Get like the buying role doesn't end once you've got the tool and it's set up. It
Nope.
ends when everybody's using it and everybody's actually seeing an uptick in performance, conversations, pipeline, revenue, closed deals, whatever it might be. And if you sell it to your team like that, that's what's going to help them actually be like, you know what, okay, I'll take this seriously. I'll actually start using whatever tool it was.
Yeah, exactly.
The next thing I wanted to sort of kind of talk to you about as well then was like, what's real AI versus what's just pretty reliable automation.
Oh, so much, so much, so many thoughts on this. So every seller should be using AI. Let's be very clear on that. But what's still being fleshed out, I think, is how we're using AI. And everyone's going to say different things. So, excuse me. So, big caveat, how you use AI depends immensely on what you're selling and who you're selling to.
Mm-hmm.
Hugely. So, if you're going more enterprise SaaS, you're going to be using it a lot for research. You're going to be using it a lot for web monitoring, for looking for signals. We'll talk about signals later, but you're looking for that and trying to find those any edge crack you can get in, even potentially doing some account mapping and maybe personality profiling. AI is going to be great at all that. You can also at that point have AI do a bit of orchestration and reminders. Like, hey, here's a strategy we recommend. Can I help you generate these complex docs, calculations, stuff like that? On the other side, if you're like doing, you're selling to, let's say you're doing logistics. So you're doing some sort of shipping product or whatever. So this is super high volume, lots of different things happening, not a lot of research. There, it's all about organization. What should I be doing next? How can I make my day as efficient as possible? Make sure nothing slips through the cracks. That's where AI is going to be helpful there. Where a lot of people are getting excited about AI, but aren't really using it very well, or a lot of the AIs out there that claim to do this, in my opinion, don't do it well, is when it comes to analyzing, and I'm going to get some flack for this, call recordings.
Okay.
Most call recording analysis is not very good, in my opinion. It's looking for
Interesting.
keywords. It's basically an AI that's been trained to look for specific keywords, phrases, and then it just looks and goes, did you talk about these specific keywords? And if you use the wrong keywords as you're speaking, it'll say, no, you didn't talk about budget. Yes, I did. Right? So now there are ones that are good at this, but there are a lot that are not good at this. And the ones that are worst at it are honestly the ones that are baked into call recording tools. The best call recording coaching analysis I've seen are ones where you have to, they don't, they can pull the transcripts, but they're not the ones that are native in the tools.
Mm.
And they're the ones that are trained to have kind of bigger range of knowledge of human language. They can better identify what's happening, what's not. They can look for emotional dynamics. I've even looked at a couple recently that actually are not just looking at the transcript recording and ingesting it, but are starting to actually look at cadence, pitch, inflection to indicate, hey, like basically they're just looking at it's basically just looking at volume and pitch. But by doing that, they can then go, hey, it looks like the way the customer phrased this might indicate they're uncomfortable. So that's getting a lot better. But a lot of what you're thinking about here is just literally, it's not AI. It's just they download the transcript, they look for the keywords and say, did you hit these things? Check, 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 check. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the other side of coaching, which again, AI is about proper AI is different than basically math. So AI is actually thinking, it's looking for different apps, it's applying logic, but it's doing more than just following a prompt. There are a lot of tools out there that say, oh, it's using AI, but it's really just transcript, look for keywords. If keywords not found, display these coaching tips.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
just logic. That's not AI, but they're selling it as AI. And that drives me up the wall. And that's why we end up with these call recordings and coaching recordings that are useless. Like they look, they're big, they're shiny, but they don't, when you actually look down to it, a proper coach, a proper sales leader looks at this and goes, I mean, I could do this myself and it would take not as fast, but I still need to go and take 2 minutes and figure out how I'm going to coach on this. So that's a big thing. And a
Huge
lot of the
thing.
AI stuff too around AI prioritization. So same thing, the tools that the AI that I'm seeing embedded in tools that is helping with prioritization, stuff like that, I find isn't very good. It's not taking into account time zones, personalities, work styles. It goes off of one specific set of best practices. Doesn't give you the ability to tune it to say, I want to go off of this or I want to go off that. It's not very flexible, whereas there are a lot of tools that are independent using proper AI where you can do all that. Does it take more time to get those built and to do that setup? Yes. But that's what makes AI good is when you invest the time to set it up correctly. You have to give it the frame of knowledge to actually do that.
Yeah. And that's like the key thing there. So key things you're pointing out there are the difference between like logic, just triggering like the right next steps
Yeah, the
versus
workflow.
actually thinking and surfacing intelligence or knowledge. Those are the two key differences. People should really like when you're buying tech and they tell you, oh, this AI thing, just really think about it in like, well, what's actually happening there? If it's probably just reliable automation off the back end of
Well,
something.
and ask questions. How'd you build your
Yeah,
LLM? What are you running on? How many different things are involved in here? If they can't tell you the structure, it's probably basically machine learning, which is incredibly useful, but then you want some of that. You definitely want a good chunk of automation, machine learning, and all that in your system, but don't pay for AI when it's not really AI. And make sure, again, you're not building something relying on it being able to do proper AI work and then it can't.
yeah. And it goes back to what are we trying to achieve? You might not need AI for it.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't have to like force AI in because that's what everyone's doing these days. Like, actually, I just need something that does this, and this tool does that. It doesn't have AI in the title, but
Unfortunately, I've had two clients this year already, both actually since August, where the board came to them and said, basically, we need you to come up with an AI adoption plan and show us how you're using AI. Not show us how you're going to optimize your processes or make more money or this. We need you to show us that you're using AI. And I find that to be the stupidest business decision ever because these leaders are going to go and try and be like, look, like I literally had to help one leader build a chart that listed their tool stack and then put a check mark as to whether that tool used AI or not. I'm like, that's not the point. That's not helpful to anyone. It's not, and to your point too, AI works best when it has a very specific, repeatable task.
Yeah.
AI works terribly when it's optimize this or connect this. Like, you have to be specific with it, and especially if you're trying to build agents to give your team back time.
Hmm.
You have to be incredibly specific with it for it to work well. And to that point, to your point earlier, a good chunk of that, by getting that specific, you might realize I don't need AI to do this. I can go and pull up Lovable and ChatGPT and basically code myself an integration. That's one of the biggest things salespeople are not talking about enough is you can build an app. I've built 3 apps this year. It's crazy. I can't believe it. Now, none of them are being sold or anything, but they did very specific things. So I used AI there to build an automation that previously I wouldn't have been able to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's now one of the things I'm doing with my co-founder this morning. I keep coming up with ideas that are going to help our product. I'm like, this will work, that will work. Can we do that? Do this? And he's like, just like work, tell Lovable, get like the basic thing that you think, then give it to me. He's a coder. I'll pull out the best bits and I'll make it work. And it
Exactly.
makes us far more efficient. And that's how sales. I think there's a lot maybe where RevOps leaders who are looking at like the back end tech stack and where do I put AI in? I've been told I have to put AI in. Could probably learn from someone like the agile frameworks that software developers and product builders have used, rather than you know googling or going to G2 and being like, what's the best for AI, and then just boss, we're going to use this because it says AI.
The best RevOps leaders are already doing all that. Um, Most of them are. And if your RevOps leader isn't doing that, you should be talking to getting a new RevOps leader. That said, you're right about all that. And I think even top sales reps and top sales leaders are doing more of that too, because I mean, how much easier is it? I remember when back in the day, I used to draw the dashboards I wanted on a sheet of paper and take it to sales
Yeah,
ops. It's the same thing, but now I can get it 3 steps further.
yeah,
I still need someone to make it pretty. I still need someone to make it stable. I cannot make it. I get the wireframe, but I'm no longer drawing on paper. I'm drawing in Lovable
yeah.
or something like
That's a
that.
great way for people to think about it.
So it's just doing a little. It's getting to that MVP of this process a lot faster because of this stuff. So it's something definitely you should be thinking about. I had someone talk to me yesterday about how to build microsites for post demo stuff. And they're like, what tool are you using? I'm like, honestly, you can probably spin it up on your own. I could figure it out over a day or two if you want to pay me to figure it out. I'm sure someone's going to tell me there's a tool that does it, but there's a lot of interesting stuff out there.
Absolutely. And just so a lot of that AI and those use cases you spoke about, I think they're all the ones that we try and help people understand rather than how's it going to speak to prospects, how's it going to email prospects, how's it going to deal with that for us. No, no, no. Have it do all the accounts, the research, all that type of stuff, prioritization, or like it should be on the orchestration side, and that can help you consolidate. And I know we were talking like about a lot of like the enterprises. We are kind of entering that era, or we've probably already been in it for most of this year. People want to consolidate their tool stacks, and that's what's happening with a lot of the market. So I think let's jump to sort of our build with stacky segment. We will look at. Oh, you run me through just kind of the top line of the a company or the scenario you had in mind, but we're kind of going to look at enterprise consolidation in this piece, right?
Yeah, so I've got in my head already a client I worked with earlier this year. We did a message and tech stack review.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a enterprise level company. They had a team of 500 sellers, so big diverse team worldwide. They had
Yeah.
that also included about 50 SDRs. The SDRs didn't support all the sales org, but they did support certain levels of it. So big thing. So they were running on Salesforce.
Mm-hmm.
They also had HubSpot, but HubSpot was primarily used for marketing. So it pushed things
Interesting.
over.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was an interesting sort of thing.
How
They
often do you see that? Because I see when I'm talking to big enterprises, who've got Salesforce, it's quite common that they also have the HubSpot marketing hub, in my experience.
Yeah, I see that a lot too, but I'm also still seeing stuff like, I mean, Mark Hutto and a bunch of others. They're still around. They're still present. It's just,
Hmm.
and I'm not going to even pretend to know anything about the marketing stack. So I'm not,
Yeah,
I'm making no judgment. All I know is that there were some interesting rules they had around when things get pushed, and what lives where that I have some
yeah,
questions around. But for our purposes, basically marketing identified people lived in HubSpot, and then the moment they basically MQL, they move into Salesforce,
yeah.
which was fine.
Hmm.
Have questions, but fine.
Okay.
Okay, they used Zoom Info. Yep, they had Zoom Info. They
Good data
had
tool, big
yep,
coverage across the states.
yep, great
Most of the
coverage.
team are in the states.
They did also have a Cognizant for EMEA.
Good.
And then they also they were starting to play with Clay to do some custom list scrubbing, list building, which
Hmm.
was kind of amusing to me. Um,
Why so?
especially, so it was amusing to me because a lot of the waterfall enrichments they were doing in Clay were also present in some of the other tools. So I was like, well,
Yeah,
why are you paying for Clay credits when it's the same enrichment sources as
yeah.
in these other things? And they just had no idea. They didn't even think about that. It's like, yeah, you got to look at where the waterfall is pulling from.
Absolutely, and like that's one of the things. Like I think people started using clay, and it because is complicated in a lot of ways. It's almost like
Oh, it's so
what we were
it's
talking about
fantastic.
earlier. What
But
we were
yeah,
talking about earlier about like some leaders are just like, oh, I've been told I have to find AI in somewhere,
yeah.
so they kind of go to clay because it's you can do some like quick, easy stuff, which is like a waterfall enrichment. But then actually you're missing out on the real benefit of clay, all the really intelligent stuff it could do, and you've probably already got a waterfall in some of these other tools, and
Yep.
you're kind of
And in
wasting
this situation, it
credits.
was exactly that. It was the leader was basically told by one of the board members, "Oh, you got to start using clay." So we started using clay, and then I was like, "You should use clay, but not for that."
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so we got some stuff there. I turned them on to Surf. Huge fan of Surf and the Surf team, um,
nice,
and specifically using Surf around getting all of their LinkedIn prospecting better into the system.
great,
Um, it
great
does a
tool.
better job of that, I think, than a lot of the other plugins out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, oh, they did
So
also. I was saying, yeah, they did also have outreach.
and
So
outreach, yeah, perfect. So I haven't got outreach on here, so I'm going to put on SalesLoft.
yeah, that's fine.
Um, Pretty similar, right? But just going back to this, immediately here you've got clay for which can do the waterfall enrichment. You've got
Hmm.
surf, which does the waterfall enrichment, and then you've got the two big regionally best data providers as well, which you could just API into surf into that waterfall rather than buy it. I imagine they probably had licenses everywhere for so many people. It's a
Yeah,
big waste
everyone
of
had access to
cash.
Zoom Info. All of the EMEA team had access to Cognism. Um,
And these are 500 salespeople, right? Huge cost they're racking
oh,
up there unnecessarily.
ginormous, ginormous.
Wow.
Yeah. So, just for context, this is a company that was selling a financial tool to financial departments at
Hmm.
large organizations. So it was an enterprise level deal, but
Yeah.
it was their target was anyone who basically has a finance department. So,
Yeah.
and it was 200 employees and up, all the way to Fortune 500.
Right. Kind of like a classic stack there, where like they've got this enterprise stack,
Hmm.
and then they've kind of like started to think we could modernize a little bit. Let's get Clay in, but I assume you probably tidied this up for them. Made what you already mentioned, like you made some changes to Clay, how they
A
were
little
using
bit, yeah.
that,
So we
so it
changed how they
became
were.
effective.
Yeah, we switched how they were using Clay from being kind of the let's go list scrub and list enrichment to okay, let's start doing a little more research, have it be doing some consolidation around, especially when they had high profile events. It was
Hmm.
okay, let's run. I worked with at that point, it was working with marketing in Clay to be like, hey, let's run the attendees through Clay, do some
Yeah,
research, get some social scrubbing, and then even potentially get some hooks that we could suggest to reps basically. So it wasn't just, hey, here's the list of people who attended this event. It's, hey, here's 5 reasons you should reach out to them right now, and here's some data and hooks that you can use.
yeah.
So not writing the emails for them, but giving them lines they could just drop in.
Yeah. And
Um,
so that probably helped optimize some of that spend around Clay
yes.
massively, rather than just wasting all those credits on waterfall enrichment, which you're paying
Yeah,
these other tools to give you
it actually
context
increased their
for, and
spend pretty significantly, but in the right way.
but
Um,
optimized in the right way.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
One of the other big things we did was we did take a look at licenses for Cognism and Zoom Info. We realized there was a
Mm-hmm.
lot of duplication there that just was not needed. There were tons of people who weren't using it. And it's
Yeah.
easy enough to have, well, at least someone else pull the list, get into the CRM, go from there. So we ended up,
Yeah.
when they went back to renegotiate, they ended up basically cutting the licenses for about half the team because they
Perfect.
realized that the
Yeah.
top sellers, they had their market mostly identified anyway, and everyone else could be served by making a request once a month. The other big thing we looked at was they had a bunch of tools around signals. So
Okay.
they had demand base and 6sense.
Ah. Okay.
So straight double up.
Yeah.
Um, they also were using they were starting to play. They had Lucia in the past. There was like
Mm-hmm.
one team that still used it, but no one else did.
Yeah.
So that got messy. And then that was the thing where now we're getting into all these different teams have different tools they used and they relied on.
Yeah.
So it gets even crazier. And then you've got like, oh, well, this team has Lucia, but this team doesn't, but they're using this thing, but they could be using that. And it's built in here. And
Yeah.
this team's using 6sense because all their stuff's built out in here, but this team's using demand base because it's all built out in there.
And and
Um,
that's just where suddenly you've got this overlap from all these different tools. Zoom Info can do some of the third party intent and stuff like that. You had 6sense. Lusher is good for contact data. Cognism, good for contact data in EMEA. You've got two waterfall enrichment tools essentially, and kind of creates more and more mess and more chaos within the system. And that's what stops that, I guess, future proofing and growth at some point, because it's all just a bit too messy.
oh, it gets better. I found out from
Okay.
working with a client that there is a maximum number of fields you can have on a Salesforce object. And they'd hit it.
Wow. That
Because
must
of
be
all
a
these
lot.
tools. Yeah,
That's crazy.
it was really crazy. So
Yeah.
they're still ongoing um, because of some massive data quality and data integrity issue because of the amount of dupes. They had lean data to help with routing and deduping. Um, thank goodness. But that needed to be overhauled because the logic was all screwy. Um, but we had to go through and basically make sure we didn't lose the data, but we also like got rid of fields that were never used or that were straight duplicates. And there's a huge data consolidation project there, which also ended up saving a bunch of money on their Salesforce costs because Salesforce charges by basically the charges for storage. So the more you're adding and the more you have in all these fields, the more data you got, the more they're going to charge you. So that was a big, 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 big thing. I think they got it. I think they cut I think it was over 100 fields that were just not needed.
That's so many wasted fields. And it's like I say, it's because of all these tools just feeding in more data,
Every
which
single one of those
one of the
tools
other
wants
tools
to
could
add
have
their
done.
10 or 15. And then you got to add all
Exactly.
the activity. And then you have to add all of the trackers. So, when things were updated. And then there's a bunch of customs so they can figure out, okay, Zoom Info
Mm-hmm.
talking to here and what came from there and what's the source and what was the most recent source, what was the original source. And
It
yeah.
gets messy, and that's what causes the distraction for your team. They then just don't really use all of that information because there's just too much of it on the screen in
Yeah.
Salesforce,
Well,
and
and
suddenly
it
everyone's
gets even
distracted.
better. It's almost
Okay.
impossible to pull reports.
Mm-hmm.
Because which
Yeah.
field do I pull it off of? There's 6
Yeah.
versions of this data. Which version of phone number? Which version of email? Which version of campaign? I want to
Mm-hmm.
see which MQL source has the highest conversion rate. I literally have to go talk to sales ops because they're the only ones that know which fields to use.
Yeah.
So now you've got an extra burden on sales ops because sales can't do their own reporting.
And
Nightmare.
so the modern version of this, the way I would clean this up completely, and we kind of already mentioned it, is I would rip out probably most of the licenses for Zoom Info, most of the licenses for Cognism, I would have dropped Lusher completely. Clay, if the use cases, and that's the thing that's helping with the prioritization and enriching for. I think you mentioned obviously good
We're
use for
using it for
events.
content generation and
Yeah,
personalization.
probably keep that.
Yep.
And then it's for me, it would be Surf or Upsell. Upsell, very similar to Surf, really good Chrome extension, helps you create contacts easily, helps reps create contacts quick and easy, can enrich the data. Data is as good as Zoom Info. But then you can go back to Zoom Info or Cognism in EMEA, get one license or an API key for way cheaper and just have that plug into Upsell, or it sounds like in this case they did it with Surf, and you basically created your own waterfall with a clean, easy to use extension for the sales reps, not jumping around between 3 or 4 different tools, making a mess in Salesforce. And we see when we're talking to companies at Stacky, that kind of play, which everyone gets the Surf or an Upsell license, and then you just get the credits, the additional credits you need from the big providers. That's like halving their data costs in a lot of instances, but doubling the mobile coverage and also speeding up how teams work.
There's another step here where more and more teams are moving to the point where, especially the outbound prospectors, basically have especially if it's a larger team, you have a full-time or at least part-time person who just does data.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, like, it's not like the reps can't pull their own lists or create their own things or they don't do research. It's not that. But data is a living, breathing thing. And so you need to make sure someone needs to keep their eye on it and make sure that when someone switches jobs, it's updated, you're notified, that things are getting cleaned, that people who are that emails one of my favorite ways to save companies money is to remind them, everyone you buy data from has a data quality guarantee. So every time your rep marks an email as bad or phone number is bad, you pull a report at the end of the quarter, you send it to your vendor, good chance you're going to get some money back. It takes 5 minutes. But no one does this. And it drives me, it's crazy to me. You might not get the money back, but it's 5 minutes. Just be like, here are all the emails and phone numbers that I bought from you that ended up being bad.
Absolutely.
You'll get credits. You might get some cash back. Super easy. And actually, the vendors love it because they want to fix it
They
too.
need to know. Yeah.
They need to know. No one, they're not going to be mad unless you're a jerk and be like, here's how you gave me 10 wrong emails. They're bad. I want credits. Dude, it's 10 emails. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, here's my quarterly report. Here's some things. Go for it. They love that. It's great. Fun story that's actually doing that is actually literally how I got to meet Henry Shook years ago. Because I sent in I did a big list poll. I ran it through, and then I actually had a really high bounce rate. It was really weird. This was back in like 2014, I think. So a long time ago. But I just sent the file to at that point it was Discover.org rep, and it made it all the way up the chain. And Henry even emailed me and said, thank you so much for telling us. We found out there was an error in this thing. We're fixing it. And by the way, we doubly appreciate this. I didn't know this. But they were running a promo because it was around Christmas time where for every bad data report they got, they would donate $1 to charity. And he reached out because he's like, you sent us so many, you kind of maxed it, but we want to do it but we wanted to ask you which charity you wanted to go to because they had 3. Normally they wouldn't pick, but they said because I sent the most and I got to pick of their
Nice.
So when I say they love this, they won't be offended. I really mean it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because their business their business reputation is built on the quality of that data. Yep. So be the person that calls it out, gets a better relationship with them, gets some money back, and it means that they're gonna know when to improve their tool, things that they need to do, which ultimately helps you as a customer anyway.
Exactly.
Great speaking to you, Ashleigh. Really huge amount of knowledge there for people on how they should actually think about AI, how not to get fooled by all these point sellers who claim it's AI, how leaders should probably think about actually adopting tools and avoiding a Jenga tech stack. And to wrap up at the end there, some nice story on how you helped ultimately Zoom Info, one of the biggest data providers, donate to charity. So that's great. Where can people find you and find out more about what you're doing?
LinkedIn. Come find me on LinkedIn. Just /Ashleigh Early. Just make sure you spell it right. Crazy spelling for the crazy lady. Website's being relaunched soon. So that'll be othersideofsales.com and ashleighearly.com. But
Excellent.
that's in development, so don't freak out if you go through. There's nothing there yet. Always
Excellent. Well, great
prioritizing
to
the
have you.
clients over myself.
All good. Look, great to have you. And yeah, hopefully everyone can keep up to date with all the stuff you're doing and learn from your wisdom. Thanks
Thank you
very
so much.
much.
Thanks for having me.
Cheers.